Who boy was not expecting that ending. So I've watched maybe probably over a third of the Friday Night Tights from tonight with Gavin McInnes, and I actually saw first on CobraCast them Jeremy talking about the episode tonight, and I was like, I've been frantically trying to reveneer Drew fronts for hours, so I couldn't watch it, and decided I needed to figure out what was going on. And if you didn't catch it, a lot of people, it seems like, were really pissed off about Gavin's takes on video games and pop culture and adults, um, you know, being into video games and pop culture and that type of stuff. But then, on top of Gavin's criticisms, at the end of the episode, he whips out a fake penis and starts peeing with it. And so a lot of people were pissed too about that, and that being on Nerderotic's channel, and that potentially, could hurt his channel. Now, according to Jeremy on CobraCast, he said he thinks it's fine, so I'm not really going to focus too much on that. But what I do want to talk about is Gavin's boomer opinions, and I think I've got some good insight on this because I've worked for years with a whole bunch of right-leaning boomer guys, and I've kind of I kind of know how they work, why they have the opinions they have. I think better maybe than the average person because I spend a lot of time with them, and I think that Gavin actually could be swayed on the pop culture topic. He is only familiar with the time he grew up in and the dynamics of that time, and how there used to be clean cut cliques, it seems like, where there was the jocks and the nerds, and there's a pretty hard line between them two or other groups. And um, I really think that it just needs to be explained to him like he's a boomer conservative. Uh, but I do think he could understand it, particularly with his history with punk rock and Vice, and all that. I don't think he's like shut off to kind of unique mingling of lifestyles, I guess. So anyway, I think first of all, it actually seemed like the Friday Night Tights guys, having seen CobraCast and someone else talking about the episode before I actually watched any of the episode, I was actually kind of surprised with how hot it kind of seemed like the Friday Night Tights guys came at Gavin, which I totally agree with them, by the way. I think that I've never been a video game person. I've never been big into video games, and I've played video games. I played GTA 5 in high school, and I was real into that for a minute. When I was young, I played Nintendo 64 games sometimes, but that was pretty much it. I was never really a gamer. And my friends at work kind of annoyed me when they would pass up going outside or doing, activities to stay inside and play games. And I would just sit there bored with them while they were doing stupid stuff on some video game. That being said, I'm not opposed to video games. I think certain aspects of video game culture, gamer culture, are stupid. I think like esports has always kind of irked me. I don't like Twitch streamers really, but that's a whole other topic and not really relevant. I am, however, really into some nerdy stuff. I'm huge into Star Wars, and I've gone deep on like Star Wars lore, stuff like that. Um, so I can at least relate on that half of the topic. I think Gavin doesn't understand is that, well, in the episode they talk for a little bit about stories, and the guys are asking Gavin if he thinks like the stories and stories like heroic stories or superheroes, things like that, where they show masculine men doing things that men should do, not like most modern day, you know, adaptations of traditional superheroes. They talk about that and ask Gavin if he thinks that's good. He's like, yeah, that's good for kids, but not for adult men. And he says like he kind of conflates like watching Spider-Man with believing in Spider-Man as an adult. And I think, but he also seems like to recognize and agree with the fact that those kinds of stories are good for kids. They they are beneficial for children to see. And the thing I would ask him is don't you think, were I there, don't you think that that kind of necessitates adults being interested in those things because they're the ones writing the stories? If adults are completely disinterested in this stuff, it just will mean there are none of those stories going forward for the next generation to learn from or use to develop. And I think he's kind of stuck in a mentality too of, he talks about when he was growing up and how he would like, when he was young, he would go to the arcade with his friends, but then he got older and they started getting interested in girls. And there was this one kid that still would stay at the arcade, and he was there hanging out with younger kids, just like playing video games all the time. And that's one of his experiences that I think has kind of probably shaped his opinion on these things. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to. He's really focused on like, oh, we got to be teenagers and we got horny and we chased girls, and then he said something about like how like men get into like cars and sports and stuff. And I think the guys made a good point of pointing out did a good job of pointing out that sports is kind of the same thing as video games. I'm also not really a sports guy. I'm an athletic guy, I'd say, but I've never been into sports ball in any form, really. I just think it's super boring, unentertaining, it's kind of lame, and sometimes gay. But that's just my opinion. But he's like, he says things like, he said, well, the difference with sports is that you're watching some freak of nature, someone who's an elite who can like do things that the average person can't do. And to that, I would say, I know someone sort of who was offered a position in the MLB as a catcher, and his contract had him starting at like $14 million a year. Now, I haven't played baseball since I was a kid, but I can guarantee you, if someone offered me a $14 million contract and gave me a few months of preparation, I could be the best catcher in the league's history. I guarantee you, I could dedicate inordinate amount of energy and time to learning that skill and doing it pretty quickly. So it's not really all that impressive a lot of the time. It's not like these guys they're not that amazing, and it's not that interesting to watch to me. So, in the same way he thinks about video games, I think I and a lot of other people maybe think about sports more than he believes they're, more than he probably believes they're to be. So anyway, he I think he would understand this idea of like adults can still be into stuff. Like when I watch Star Wars, there are parts of Star Wars that are just badass. Yeah, it's like a fantasy world. You know, um, there's fantastical stuff going on, but it's not like stupid and childish. I mean, there's dark themes, there's politics, there's fighting, there's a lot of good adult themes in a lot of this material for kids, and I think that's what Gavin kind of overlooks is like these things are written by adults and they're written to be interesting, and for something to legitimately be interesting and like you don't read you don't generally read like comic books to very young children. Some very young children might, now and then get into that kind of thing like early on, but generally you're reading them like kids books, children's stories, it's kids that are a little bit older that become interested in comic books or video games, those kinds of stories, superheroes, because they do have more adult themes to them, and that's kind of what serves as the shaping aspect of that realm of pop culture. That's how it shapes the minds of the youth. So I think that's one of his mistakes is he's overlooking that. Um, I do think he actually was a lot calmer than I was expecting him to be at the beginning, but he definitely did not like censor his opinions on it in any way. He said he was like, I think it's childish and this and that, and I totally get the sentiment, and I think I understand why he feels that way. But I would stress to him that there's more to it than just you know oh, Superman, Spider-Man's for kids. I mean, the movies, superhero movies, usually aren't intended as per their rating to be for like young children. It's for older children, children that are growing and learning, and it's adults writing you know, making this content. So anyway, I just think that I think Gavin's actually closer to being moved on this topic than a lot of people are thinking, and he does come off as a super boomer, like Daily Wire type, out of the loop conservative guy when he talks about this kind of stuff. Um, but it's understandable. I do also think you really should think about the effects, the consequences of letting the left dominate the culture that shapes the minds of the youth, the consequences of that, and how bad that really is. And this is the same thing that's happened with art of all forms, a lot of different things that appeal to younger people. The left has just been allowed to dominate it and do whatever they want with it, and it's ruined a lot of it. It's not growing. It's not something that helps kids, or young people grow and develop and you know have something to aspire to. It's just all of that has kind of been ruined over time by the left being allowed to dominate these areas. So I think you should really think about that some more. But yeah, anyway, so I was surprised. I was actually not expecting him to be as calm as he was, and I thought the Friday Night Tights guys came off a little bit hot right at the beginning. However, I agree with them, and I think if it had just been explained to Gavin a little bit differently, I think he would have understood more and maybe started thinking about how the way this thing is set in his mind is not necessarily how it is in reality. It's not how it was when he was a kid. So anyway, I just thought I'd get that out there.